Hey everyone, today we're going to be working on Unit 8, LT4 notes, adding and subtracting radical expressions. So when we add and subtract radical expressions, first we have to simplify the radicals, and then we're going to combine like radicals. That means if you have the same number under that square root button, then they can be added and subtracted. So if you look at this first one here, because we have a square root of 2, I'm going to highlight here, a square root of 2 here and a square root of 2 here, that means we can add that 3 and that, we're going to actually subtract that 3 and that 4, and then leave it as a square root 2 under there. The next one going down, and I'm going to do that in red, we have a square root of 2 and a square root of 7. Those are not the same, so we can't do anything with that 2 and that 6 out front because they're not the same. They cannot be combined. So let's look at this first one here. When I look, I'm going to first check and see, are my signs the same under my radical, or are the numbers the same under the radical? And when they are, yes. So that means I can go ahead and take my numbers out front, so my 2 and my 3, and because I'm adding, I'm going to add those. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So I'm going to have the number out front be 5, and then the radical stays the same. So it's going to be times the square root of 2. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the next one. I'm going to go ahead and look, and I have the square root of 3 and the square root of 3. So because those are the same, I can go ahead and take the numbers out front. So I have a 4, and this one is subtracting. So I'm going to say minus 2, and I get 2 square root 3. So the square root 3 stays the same. And those are going to be your final answers for number 1 and number 2. All right, so let's look at number 3. First, we're going to start with the same number under the radical. So when I look at this, I see I have a 7 right here, and I have a 7 right there. So I know I can combine that 3 and that 2. When I look, in front of that 3, I have a positive or a plus symbol. So I have plus 3. And in front of that 2, I have plus 2. So I know that those are going to be added. So I can just say 3 square root 7 plus 2 square root 7, and I get 5 with the square root of 7. And then I'm going to look and see, do I have other numbers with it like radicals? So when I'm looking, I'm going to look at the 10. So I have a square root of 10 right here, and I have a square root of 10 right here. Looking at it, I see that I have a 2 in front of my square root 10, and I don't have a number in front of this square root of 10, but just like if you have a variable or a letter, if there's not a number in front, it's always a 1. So if there's not a number in front of your radical, it's going to be a 1. So now I'm going to take that 2, and because I have minus in front of that square root 10, or that 1 square root 10, it's going to be subtract. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So then I would go ahead and write that 1. And it's a positive 1, so I'm going to say 1 square root, and they're both a 10. So I can say 1 square root 10. So I can write it this way, and that would be a correct answer. Or you could write it 5 square root 7 plus, and you can just have the square root of 10 in there. Okay, so number 4 is going to be done very similar to number 3. The first thing we're going to do is look and see what numbers do they have in common under the radical. Okay, so I see I have a 13 right here. And when I look over here, I have a 13. So I'm going to take the numbers that are in front. So I have a 9 right here. And then I have minus, because I have a minus in front, minus 2 right there. So 9 minus 2 is 7. So I'm going to 7 with a square root of 13. And now I'm going to see what else under the radical is the same. So when I'm looking, I have a square root of 17 right here and a square root of 17 right there. There's no number in front of that last 17. So if there's no number, there's actually that 1 right there, or in this case, it's a negative 1. So now I'm going to take the numbers ahead. So I have a 2 square root 17. I'm going to minus 1 square root 17. So 2 minus 1 is 1, and that's going to be a positive 1. So I'm going to say plus 1 square root of 17. And just like number 3, I can write it like this: 7 square root 13 plus 1 square root 17, or I can just say square root 17. Both of those would be counted as correct. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 were already set up. You didn't have to simplify your expressions before you could add or subtract. These ones we're going to have to simplify, and we're going to do that just like we did the lessons before. So I'm going to start with that 72. And I'm going to get the legs ready for my 72, and I'm going to break it up. So 72 divided by 2, I get 2 and 36. And then if I want to break up 36, I get 2 and 18, and then 2 and 9, and 3 and 3. Okay? So when I look and I find pairs, so I have a pair of 2s, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently just because I'm going to shorten it up. I'm kind of running out of room. So I have a pair of 2s right here and a pair of 3s right here. So my pair times my pair is going to come out front. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then I have just this leftover 2 right there. So it's going to be 6 square root 2. So 72 is the same as saying 6 square root 2. And then I'm going to do the same with 50. I'm going to change colors here so you can see that. So I'm going to break up 50. So I know 2 and 25, and then I know 5 and 5. So now I'm going to find my pair. So I have a pair of 5s right here, and then just that lonely 2 that's at the end of the leg right there. Okay, so this one is going to be 5 and 5 are going to come out as 1. So I have 5 square root of 2. And remember, we're going to add because we had plus in the middle. So now we're going to add that 6 square root 2 plus that 5 square root 2. So let me change colors for you. What other color do I have left? Maybe green. Let's do that. So I have 6 square root of 2 plus 5 square root 2. And because we have square root 2 and square root 2, that means that I can go ahead and add those together. So 6 plus 5 is 11. So I'm going to say 11 with the square root of 2, and that's going to be your final answer. Okay, we're going to do that same thing with number 2. First, we have to simplify these expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and break up that 192. So if I take 192 and I get my legs, I get 2. So 192 divided by 2, I get 2 and 96. And then I break up that 96 and I get 2 and 48. And then 2 and 24. And then 2 and 12. And 2 and 6. And then 2 and 3. And those are all prime numbers, so I can't go any further. So again, just because I'm running out of room, I'm going to find my pairs in a different color and write those out. So I have a pair of 2s here. I have a pair of 2s here. And I have a pair of 2s here. And then I just have that lonely 3. Okay, so I'm going to take one set of 2s times the other set of 2s. So 2 times 2 is 4. Times one more 2, which gives me an 8. So this is going to be 8 with a square root of 3. That's what's going to be left over. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing with 75. So I'm going to pick a different color here. Let's go yellow. So I'm going to break up that 75. So when I break up 75, I'm going to start with 5 and 15. And then that 15 I can break up with a 5 and a 3. Now I'm going to find my pair. So I have a pair of 5s right here. So 5's come out front. One pair times the square root of 3. Okay. So now we have 8 square root 3. And then when I look, this was subtracting. So now I'm going to minus 5 square root 3. Okay, so I check. Are both of my numbers under the radical the same? So I have a 3 and a 3, so those match up. So now I can just take that 5 and that 8 and subtract that 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. So my answer is going to be a 3 with a square root of 3 for your final answer. Okay, number 7, you have 4 square root 3 minus the square root of 27. So 4 square root 3 is already simplified. We can't simplify that anymore, but we can simplify that 27. So I'm going to go ahead and break that 27 up. So 27 is an odd number, so I'm going to divide it by 3. And I get 3 and 9, and then break that 9 up, and I get 3 and 3. I'm going to go ahead and find my pair. So I have a pair of 3s right here. So 27 is really the pair of 3s come out front with a square root of 3 under the radical. Okay, so now I know I have 4 square root 3 minus 3 square root 3. So I can double check, and I have a 3 here and a 3 here, so I can go ahead and just subtract those first ones. So 4 minus 3 is 1, so I can say 1 square root 3, or I can just say the square root of 3. This is more common in math world, but if this helps you, if that 1 helps you to put it out front, you can do that one too. So we'll do that. Okay, same with number 2. So number 2, the square root of 2 is already simplified. You can't do anything with that. But 2 square root 18, well, that 18 is pretty big under that radical. So I'm going to go ahead and divide that. So I'm going to say 2 and 9, and then 3 and 3. So I have a pair of 3s. So my 3s are going to come out front. And this one I'm going to write out a little bit more. So I have 2 that was already there. So I'm looking at this 2 right there that was already there, times that pair of 3s. And then what I have left over is that square root of 2. And then you have plus the square root of 2 from right here. Okay, now we're going to simplify a little bit. 2 times 3 is 6, so I have 6 square root 2 plus the square root of 2. Remember, if there's no number out front of that square root 2, there's actually a 1 in front of that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change colors so it's not red and put that 1 there. So 6 plus that 1 is 7. So 7 square root 2 is going to be your answer. Okay, when I look at number 9, I have the square root of 125 plus 4 square root 5 plus 45. Well, I know that 4 square root 5, we can't simplify that anymore, but I do know that we can simplify this 125. So I'm going to go ahead and break up that 125, and I'm going to say 125 divided by 5. And I get 5 and 25. And then I'm going to break that up, and I get 5 and 5. Okay, so my pair is going to come out front. So I have a pair of 5s right here. So this is going to be 5 square root, and then I have that leftover 5 plus 4 square root 5. So this one's going to stay the same. We don't have to simplify that at all. And now we have to find the square root of 45. I'm going to switch colors here and break up that 45. And I know 45 goes into 5, so I'm going to divide by 5 and 9. And then break that 9 up, and I get 3 and 3. So now I have a pair of 3s with a leftover 5. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my number at the bottom. And that's another plus. So plus, my pair of 3 comes out front, and then I have a square root of 5. Now I can look, are all my numbers the same under my radical? So I have a 5, and a 5. Yep, so when they're all the same, I can just take my numbers out front and add those together. So I have 5 plus 4, which is 9, plus that other 3, which is 12. So I have 12 square root 5 as my final answer. Okay, number 10, I have 2 square root 12 minus 3 square root 27 plus 2 square root 48. So I see everything under the radical, under all 3 of those radicals, we can reduce those or simplify those. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 12, I'm going to start, it's an even number, so I'm going to say 2 and 6, and then 2 and 3. And then I'm going to find my pair. So I have a pair of 2s. So 2's come out front, so 2 square root 3, because I have that 3 left over. And now I'm going to break up my 27. So 27's odd, so I'm going to divide it by a 3. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then I'm going to say 3 and 3. Now I have to find my pairs. So I have a pair of 3s and an extra 3 out front. So now I'm just going to add that, or not add it, because this is minus right here, we're going to subtract it. So minus, my pair of 3s comes out front with 3 under the radical. And now we have to simplify that 48. So I'm going to do that in blue here. So I'm going to say 48 is an even number. So I'm going to divide it by 2. So I have 2 and 24, and then 2 and 12, 2 and 6, and 2 and 3. I'm going to find my pairs. So I have a pair of 2s right here, and I have a pair of 2s right here. Remember, those get multiplied together when they come out front. So 1 pair of 2s times 2 pairs of 2s. So it's really 2 times 2, so that's going to be 4. When I look here, it's a positive, so I'm going to say plus 4, and then I have this leftover 3, so square root 3. Now I'm going to look at these, and I see I have a 3, a 3, and a 3. Okay, so I'm going to go right in order. So I have a 2, So I have a 2 right here, and I'm subtracting because I have minus right here. 2 minus 3 is -1, and then I have plus 4. So -1 plus 4, that's going to give me a positive 3, and I have a square root 3 remaining. So the answer to that one will be 3 square root 3. That's it for your notes video today. Please reach out if you have questions.